Could go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome everyone today. Thank you so much for being with us. We're excited to have you joining us for the Virtual Summer Institute. Welcome to Online Pedagogy and Classroom Management. I'm Brooke Drennan, and I see a lot of familiar faces out there, so hello. I'm here to be your session host, and I'm here to support the presenter, who I will introduce shortly. I'm here to offer technical assistance to participants as well as share the session evaluation and certificate information at the end of the session. So please don't hesitate to use the chat to ask questions or request technical support. I'd be glad to help you if there's anything that you're having problems with. And at this time, I'd like to introduce to you our session presenter, Gina Pavlovich, Director of Online Learning for the Niswonger Foundation. So take it
Thank you. Thanks so much. You're getting really good at saying my name. You've had to do this so
I've
much.
been practicing.
I'm
I just
impressed.
say it in my head and practice out loud. So.
I love it. I love it. Well, thanks for having me. Guys, it's great to see all of you here. I did want to say there is a place where you can pull up the materials for this class, including this PowerPoint. There's also a website that you can access that's going to have more resources, and I'll talk to you about that in a moment. But it is wonderful to see all these faces on here at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday. Hope you guys are having an okay summer. So first off, we only have an hour. So this is going to be super fast, right? And you're going to be tempted to say bad words in your head because I'm going to be clicking things so fast and you're say, Gina, slow down, you're killing me. But what I want to stress to you is that everything that I'm about to talk about and that I'm about to go through, you can access online along with a lot of other pieces of information and resources. If you have the website up or this slideshow up right now, you can just click the link here, or if you go to the resources page, you can also see a link to this as well as to my Google Slides. But it looks like this when you pull up the website, and the video is going to be on here. The Google presentation is on here, but then also a lot of pieces of information that I'm going to talk about today that's going to be on here just to help you, to try to give you some ideas of things in your classroom. Also a few things that I'm not going to really discuss, but I think you should check out, like some great articles that talk about what does online classroom management look like, what does that really mean. This one right here is long, but if I have any teachers, not just SPED teachers, because the information in it was wonderful, but especially SPED teachers, if you want some more information on resources and how to lay out a class that that SPED students could navigate through and things like that. This video was excellent. Information on online discussions, and then I just put a few of my resources from Niswonger Online to again give you ideas. So if you wanted to make a little infographic for your classroom that talks about netiquette, which we're going to go over in just a minute, then I wanted to show you what ours looks like, so you could go in and do that. But let's go back here, and the first thing I want to do is just quickly talk about why this is important, even without COVID-19 and schools closing, and without the possibility of, schools having to close this fall. We all, none of us really know what's going on right now, right? But even before all of this, blended learning was, is a great thing to have in your pocket as a teaching tool. And all that means is just pulling in online materials. And I just put 4 little bullets here of, why would you want to have some online resources? If your school has a Canvas account for you, why would you want to use that when your kids are sitting there in front of you? And I put here, it's a great place for sub-plans. We've all woken up. I have at 6 o'clock in the morning, I had to call my best friend who teaches across the hall for me and say, I'm so sorry, but can you go in early and make make copies for me because my son just woke up with 102 fever. We've all had to do that. But now, imagine having everything you need within a module online in your Canvas class. And so instead of having to do that, you just get in for, you tell the front office, hey, tell my sub to have the kids sign into the Canvas class, go to this module, and boom, they can start working. I do, of course, stress, don't, the first time they ever access your Canvas course or your online course, whatever it is, wherever it is, the first time they do that should not be with the sub. That's kind of mean, right? So make sure you introduce that early, but it's a great place for things like that. It's also a great place where you can make it so that all the kids log in and they don't even know it, but 10 kids could be looking at one thing and doing an enrichment type project. 10 other kids could be doing a review, and then 5 other kids could be going back into the chapter to rework or relearn something that they're just not catching on to yet. And so it's a great way to do that personalized learning. This is also a great way, and really this, when I was in the classroom, and I started doing this 15 years ago, and I remember there was one laptop cart at Greenville High School, and we were so excited to get that laptop cart, and I was using it as much as I could. I was trying to reserve it and use it as much as I could, but I taught social studies. I still do, but I teach social studies classes, and all of you social studies teachers, as soon as you say you teach a secondary social studies class, that for me in high school, that meant I had 30 to 35 kids in my classroom, and there's no way to get the feedback and the information I need from 35 kids while I'm standing in front of them all at the same time. And so I would pull in those laptops, and I would have 10 kids on a laptop, 10 kids doing, maybe a map or doing something from the book. And then I would have 10 kids sitting in front of me in a small group for 15 or 20 minutes, or even more sometimes. And I was able to cut that class down. I always called it dividing, and I'd say I'm dividing and conquering today. But it would cut that huge class down into just 10 kids sitting in front of me and just talking as close to one-on-one as I could get. And it was just such a great way. It was such a help for me as a teacher to see what students were getting and what students weren't, and just getting that feedback from them. And sometimes it would be a very open just chat, and we'd be laughing about things, but then sometimes I'd be asking them some pretty straightforward questions about the information we were covering to see what they knew. But anyway, it was just a wonderful way for me to cut that class down and to get that small group in front of me. And then finally, we all know this, and the whole world knows this after this spring, I think, that online is never going to replace our teachers. I'm the director of an online program, and when I speak, no matter who I'm speaking to, whether it's at a state conference or it's just no matter who I'm speaking to, I always stress that nothing can replace getting that student in a classroom with a great teacher. Nothing can replace that. But with this blended learning, and with the ability to supplement what you're already doing in the classroom, it's such a great way to, again, get kids into small groups and do things like that. And so I had to stress that before we move on, that everything you do right now to get ready for the what ifs of this fall semester, none of it is going to be for nothing. If let's say there's, knock on wood, let's all say a quick prayer, there's a cure found tomorrow for COVID-19. Whatever you've done within your online space is still going to be something that's going to be so helpful and just a great tool for you to have within your classroom. So please don't think that, oh, I'm going to do all this work and then I'm going to trash it after COVID-19 passes or anything like that, because it's definitely not, that's not going to be the situation. So just to share a few similarities, a few differences. First off, some bad news is I'm not going to teach you guys anything that you don't already know when it comes to pedagogy and classroom management. Um, I'm just going to talk to you about how to kind of, thoughts on creating that space. So the first one says similarities. You need an engaging and inviting area with your online classroom and within your brick and mortar classroom. And you need to show your personality. So just all of that we already know, but now we need to think about it from that online standpoint. Students need to create more than they consume. So right now, you guys are just consuming technology. You're just sitting here and you're listening to me and you're clicking through things. But what I hope that you do after this is you take it back and you then create something for yourself to help you within your classroom. Same thing for kids. They're going to click through things. They're going to watch you do, maybe watch you do a video or watch some kind of video. But then we want them to take that information and always create something with it. We need to set our expectations early. That single landing point. So if somebody says, you've got Miss P, third period, when I was at Greenville High School, everybody knew, okay, Miss P, that's room 124. You need that same thing in the online space. So everything needs to start in the same place. And whether that's Canvas or a Google Classroom, or even something simple, as simple as a Symbaloo page, and I'll show you that in a moment, or I'll talk to you about that in a moment. But there needs to be this one single landing point. So when that sub says, Miss P has stuff online for you to do, all of my kids would know, okay, here's where I go. Here's where I start. We always need to teach the why. And then, of course, our parents have to be our ally. If they think that what we've put online is just busy work or it's not helpful, then they're just going to tell their kid, don't worry about it. Don't do it. And so we've got to make sure they understand the why behind everything that the kids are doing too. Some of the big differences, one, and I put here, one of my best friends teaches kindergarten, and she's a saint, as all kindergarten teachers are. I say kindergarten through like first grade, second grade, I could never do it, and then middle school, I always say. Those are our other saints, so all of you guys too. But just when you're talking about expectations and when you're setting the rules within the online environment, you oftentimes, and this is 99% of the time, you have to really explain those expectations. With online or with classroom expectations, because we've had all these wonderful teachers before us teaching and explaining, then we tell the kids, okay, you've got to be in here and sitting in your seat by 7:40, ready to go, or you're tardy. And that's all we have to say, and the kids get it. And that's because that kindergarten teacher was, wonderful at teaching them these things. But in the online environment, it's not always that easy. You can't just say something and then expect them to really understand it, because a lot of it's going to be new to them. When it comes to classroom management, one thing to always keep in mind is that online access is a privilege for these students. And I'll always remember when one of my largest classes, we were doing those groups that I was telling you about one day. And this back corner, a couple of boys just wouldn't settle down. They were very loud. And after about 10 minutes and fussing at them multiple times, I said, that's it, close everything, line your desk back up, get them back in the rows, get out your book. And I seriously just stopped everything and pulled up a PowerPoint, and I swear it gave like the most boring lecture that I've ever given in my life. But you know what? After that, the next time I allowed them to get those laptops out and to get into those groups, I remember sitting in the front of the room talking to my group, my little small group, and I heard those two boys who I love them, right? But I heard them start to act up, start to giggle and get restless. But before I could even say anything, somebody else said, would you be quiet? I don't want to have to put all this up again and not be allowed to do this again. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So just keep that in mind anytime you're using any kind of, you know, technology in your classroom. That technology is a privilege, and your school systems even have it set out as a privilege, and it's a privilege that can be lost. And you can take it away from one or two kids, or you can take it away from the whole group. But it is a tool. It is a classroom management tool. And then finally, again, I've already said this, but online learning, this online environment, it's going to be new for these students, and you need to start slow because, and this is something with our fully online high school classes that we are always keeping in mind. Our online high school classes follow the same standards, oftentimes the same pacing as a classroom course, but the kids always think it's so much harder. But it's not because of the content. It's not because the Spanish we're teaching them is harder. It's because in addition to learning Spanish, that first week of class, they're also having to learn how to navigate through this world that they're very unfamiliar with. So we have to take it very slow the first week, or oftentimes 2 weeks of our online courses. We take it very slow. And then after that, after they've done a few assignments, they've submitted some work, they've done some online discussions, then once you've done it once, you know how to do it. And so then they can really focus on learning the content. And it's the same way for you guys in the classroom when they're working with you in the classroom. It's going to feel very slow in the beginning, but once they do it, it's going to be something that they remember, and it's just going to get easier for them. So then they can start focusing on just the content that you're teaching. So let's talk about some online classroom management. And if you were to Google this, something that you'll see quite often is netiquette. So it's etiquette on the internet, which I think is kind of precious. But all netiquette is basic rules for, you know, how you should act and things you should do when you're in the online environment. And what I wrote here was, it's basic rules, but it's also rules that many adults still do not understand or do not abide by. And it tells you here, you can click here and go to the Niswonger Online Netiquette and Norms doc, and I'm going to click on that in a moment. But it's laid out, ours is laid out into these different topics. But what I want to stress is that when you teach netiquette, no matter how young they are, we're teaching a life skill right now, because we all know that these kids are going to go on and they're going to have to use the internet. They're going to have to probably most likely use email and all of this stuff. And so the same reason why we teach them actual etiquette within the classroom, again, there's those young elementary school teachers who are teaching them how to, you know, sit properly at the desk and do this and raise your hand before you get up and go to the bathroom. For that same reason, we've also got to teach them just how to behave online. And it's for their own safety too. And it's also just to help build that kind of foundation that will help get them through, you know, going into maybe post-secondary, whether it's university, TCAT, no matter what, those kids are going to be, first off, have to do a lot of stuff online just to even get accepted into those universities. But then second, they will need to know that when they email their teacher, they should write properly and not write like a text message. And then also in the workforce, if you want to get a job at Walmart right now, you don't walk into Walmart and fill out a job application. I remember my first job at Dairy Queen. I walked into Dairy Queen, they handed me the application. I sat at a table, I filled it out. That doesn't happen anymore. You go in and you say, "Are you hiring?" And if they say, they'll say yes, go to walmart.com. And I know with McDonald's, I have a niece who got a job at McDonald's, and she had to fill out everything online. She had to take an online math test, and she also had to upload a resume. And she had to do all of this before they would even call her in for an interview. So you could understand kids that are completely just oblivious to online and have no idea to say how to upload a Word document onto a website, this could be a barrier for them. And that's a barrier to get a job at McDonald's, you know? So again, life skills that we're teaching, and they're just, we've got to do it. But if you want to click here, I've already got it pulled up. First off, I want to show you that, so this is a 3-page form, and this is ours for online, and we share it with our students and we share it with our parents, and I highly recommend you do that too. But this is something that I wanted you to be able to take and edit and kind of create your own for your own class. And if you click over on File, you should have the option to download it. And if you download it as a Word document, you can edit it. This is, I've got a whole bunch of other options because I'm the owner of it, but you should be able to download that and then look through it later on your own and just think about ways in which you could possibly edit this and use it within your own classroom. But I'm not going to go through all of these, of course, but I do want to stress a few things within each. First off, security, no matter the age of your students, kindergarten students, teachers, if they're putting them online for anything, should talk about security. They're not going to talk about it the way I wrote it here, but they need to talk about security. And, just things, again, that we as adults in this world, we know not to let the world know our password. We know that there's ways to change our passwords to make our account more safe, but students don't know this because they've just never had to deal with this before. The third one is really big for me, and this is something that has happened a few times with students who are doing our online classes, is they'll be working from a computer in the computer lab. The bell rings and they will literally stand up and walk out the door. So sitting here is they're logged in to their account, to their full school account. They're then logged into, say, one of my Latin classes. And I've had a couple of instances where they just stand up and walk out. And then the next group comes in, sits down. And when they do, they say, "Oh, look, Latin class is already pulled up," and they start working. And what they don't realize until sometimes after they've already submitted some assignments is that they just did that in another person's account. And then, of course, something else that will happen, Sarah stands up and she leaves everything open. And then Maria comes over and says, "Ooh, I want to see what answers she put for this assignment." And that's all things that can happen if the students don't understand that they need to log out, they need to close all their windows, things like that. So again, you may word it completely different, but those are just all things that these kids are not going to think about. And so we've got to kind of bring it to their attention. The next two, the communication and the emails, they kind of go hand in hand. You can see the number 1 here, and this is the first week of school every semester, is me writing students and saying, this is not Twitter, this is not a text message. I'm always saying you does not equal you. I actually just wrote that a couple of days ago. A kid did an essay question on a test, and they wrote you instead of you every single time. That's a pet peeve of mine, I'm sure of your all's too. But you've just got to stress to them that you need to write in proper English, you need to, grammar, you need to proofread. And again, this is not a text message. A big one that we've added in is to be careful with sarcasm, because we can't see your facial expressions. We can't see that smirk as you're typing something and being silly. And that could sometimes be read and by some and be very offensive. We know not to email in all caps, and I'm not joking. In the spring, I had a parent who every single email that was sent to me was all caps. And so I really felt like she was always yelling at me, and she was just sweet. She never said anything rude. It was always sweet emails, but it was always in all caps. I did not correct her. I just didn't feel comfortable doing that. But our kids need to know these little things, right? With emails, we talk about the junk and spam folder. Kids don't know what that is. They never check it. And oftentimes my teachers' emails go there first and the kids have to mark it as safe. So these are little things that, I mean, with the school email address, you probably don't have to worry about that much because they just block things. But still, give them a little insight onto that. This one here, this happens all the time. A student will email me and they'll say, how to I don't know how to answer number 5 on the quiz. That's the whole email. And this is the email address, something like this. And so, of course, I have no idea who this is. I have to go into my records and look at the different emails and try to find out which kid this is. But then also, I just have to email them back and say, honey, I don't know which quiz you're talking about. So, I talk about up here, keep your emails brief, but you need to really kind of be specific, especially if you're having trouble with something. You got to tell us the assignment. You got to tell us exactly what's happening. Like if you're trying to access a page and it says page error, you need to tell me that. But if you're trying to access a page and it just comes up blank, that's something different. And so you need to tell me that also. Talk about replying to all and forwarding. Again, that's just great information that they need to understand that there's implications, good and bad, for doing both of those things. And the online discussions, so let's say that we start back in the fall and the kids are there 100% of the time. I still think it's a great idea for teachers who have an online environment to have their students do online discussions. And why? Because again, it's a life lesson. They are going to go to college and their teachers are going to have an online discussion for them. And instead of saying, what's an online discussion? How do I discuss online? They're going to understand it. They're going to say, oh yeah, I've done that before. I know what that means. But we just have some things here that talk about, the big one is once you type something and you hit reply or you hit send, the entire class sees it. It's like raising your hand and answering a question is what I tell my students all the time. And they need to understand that because they need to proofread it. They need to make sure that it looks nice, that they look like educated people when they answer these. There's also just some big ones that talk about, no insulting or demeaning remarks. This one is a big one and it's kind of a newer edition, another one where you kind of live and learn. But oftentimes teachers will have just a very general discussion board where students just talk to each other. And so maybe it's 10 o'clock at night and someone's trying to do some math homework and they have a question about how to do something. Well, oftentimes teachers will have a discussion board where they can go on and just ask that question. And if any other classmates are on, those classmates could possibly help them answer it. But what you have to stress to them is you really need to make sure you know the answer before you help them, or at least say, I don't know for sure, but this is what I did, or these are the steps I took to answer that math question. Because you don't ever want to lead somebody in the wrong direction. You don't want to guess and then just say, and then they think, oh, well, he knows what he's talking about. And then they end up getting it wrong or being, told something that was completely, has ended up hurting them when answering the question instead of helping them. So, check out all of those that deal with the online discussions. And then the last one just is on our Zoom meetings or Skype or Canvas collaborations. These are all ways and places where we can have meetings with our students, online live video meetings. And these are some things that a lot of us, especially those teachers who have been fully in the classroom, this is all things that you've probably learned the hard way this past spring when your school system said, do some online meetings. And you were like, okay, let's try that. And so this is a great place for you to kind of just look at, again, things that we've learned while we've done them. Some big ones is we always tell our kids to just check your surroundings, what are you wearing? What are the people around you doing? What is Mamaw on the couch behind you? Is she wearing her old nightgown that's basically sheer? And that would have been me in high school. If I was having to come onto an online Zoom meeting, I would have to like leave the living room because Mamaw was sitting there watching her shows. Um, but just to kind of bring to their attention that they need to look around and make sure nothing is distracting. They need to, if a pet that can sometimes just start barking loudly, is in the room, maybe they should put that pet in another room. Another big one is the chat box. And I want to make sure that you guys understand, especially with Zoom. I don't know about Skype. I haven't used Skype that much, but with Zoom and Canvas collaboration, you can disable that chat box. And for us right now, the chat box is amazing because you guys are just asking questions or we're sharing information with you. And that's wonderful. And that's what it's used for. But this past spring, I walked in on my 9-year-old son who was supposed to be watching and listening to his teacher. And I look over his shoulder and I see that him and his friend are having a full-on conversation about Fortnite in the chat box. And so oftentimes that chat box can be more of a distraction than a help. And there are other ways where kids can kind of get your attention to ask a question. Like there's a little thing where they can raise their hand and do things like that. But just keep that in mind anytime you're setting up an online conference. Think to yourself, do I want that chat box there? Is it going to help or is it going to be a distraction? And then some information that just talks to them about, try to log on a little bit sooner because you never know. I mean, we've all been in a hurry and had to log on like 1 minute before the meeting starts. And what happens when you do that is there's always something crazy that happens. You're like, oh, and so we tell the students to try to log on a little early. This one talks about them getting comfortable with the program beforehand if they're able to. And then the last one, this is huge in the online environment, but that academic integrity, that plagiarism, the big one, and you guys can read through these on your own, but the big one that I want to stress is that we call it plagiarism, whether it's accidental or blatant. And we always have that added in because that's the first excuse you're going to get when you say, this is copied and pasted from this website. They're going to say, oh, well, I didn't know. And so we stress to all of the students, and the students actually, before they have access to any of the work within our online classes, they have to take and make a 100 on a quiz that covers our full academic integrity policy, which is it's about a 2-page document that talks about this and a little bit more. But that's one of the key pieces is the I didn't know is not an excuse. And then we have some very straightforward consequences. And that's another big thing is and maybe your school already has this set in place, but if not, you as a teacher who's having students working online, you should have something set in place so that the first time they say, oh, I didn't know, you say, well, that's not an excuse, but okay, I'll let you redo this. And you can let them redo it for half credit. You can let them redo it for full credit or anything in between. But, you set those consequences early. And then the second time when it's another, oh, well, I didn't, then you can say, well, that's a 0. So you get a 0. But just make sure that those standards are set and that the students understand those. And then these little examples of plagiarism is of course not everything, and we say that, but it's just kind of gives them an idea of what we're talking about so the students really understand. Some of them are very straightforward. You take somebody else's essay and you turn it in as your own. That's plagiarism. But then some kids, they think it's completely okay to submit a paper that they did for one class to another teacher in another class. And so we have to say, no, that's not acceptable. We also talk about how if you leave your computer open and somebody steals your work, that's we're not as hard on that when that happens with kids, but that is something that you cannot allow that to happen. You have to safeguard your work. So we do talk about that. Um, to just again to bring all of this to their attention, because this is going to be something that they've just not had to deal with for the most part. So please, like I said, click on file and download that, and tell me in chat if you're having trouble doing that. But I logged out of everything and accessed this, and it was giving me that option. So hopefully it will give you guys that option too. But if not, let me know, and I'll fix it. So let's move on to a little bit about pedagogy. And like I said previously, this is nothing new. You know, a good teaching is good teaching. But I do want to talk about how, again, you need to make your online space inviting, because the kids are already going to be a little nervous about it, especially if they've never done it before. Your homepage is crucial, and I pulled up a few homepages from some of our online courses. Every one of my courses, one of the first things the student sees is a teacher, the picture of their teacher. Because, I mean, look at me, look at my last name. And people are like, oh, Lord, where is she from? This is going to be terrible. And so I'm hoping when they log in, and I have a little video here, but I'm hoping when they log in and they see me, they're like, okay, that's not that bad. Our sociology teacher is, and he also teaches our economics teacher. Right now he's teaching economics. He's Dr. Bergen. So imagine taking your very first online class ever with Dr. Bergen. And they're all like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so hard. And then they log in and they see this video of him smiling and like, hey guys, I'm here to help. So just make it something that's inviting, something that they're not going to be afraid to start clicking. And then also, most importantly, they're not going to be afraid to ask questions. Again, why are we doing this? Why are we learning this? Have that all throughout this course, the same way that you may put learning expectations and things up on the board. Put it within your course, and make it kind of fun. There's easy ways to kind of make it fun. Okay, so all of my modules begin with an intro page, and they all have some kind of GIF that is just cute and funny, but is also kind of talking, introduces them to, this is why we're getting ready to talk about this. And he's saying, I can't think of things I don't want. And he talks about a GPS watch and a robot dog and stuff like that. And it's funny, but it's letting them know that there's a lot of things out there that we want to buy, but we've got to learn how to manage our money. And then, goes on and gives a little bit more information. And here are the standards. But just little things like that can kind of make the students giggle, but then also, get them into it and get them to be like, yeah, I get it, So as you can see, this is talking about like career planning and things like that. So, and let me show you before I go on so I don't forget, this website that you have the link to. This is the session I'm doing right now, but let's say that you like this and you're like, I want to put a GIF in mine. Well, you can go here and you can click on Canvas Basics, and I have a whole bunch of videos that just talk to you about how to create pages like that, like a home page, how to put in pictures and videos, how to do assignments and quizzes and all of those types of things. So if you are, thinking, I'd love to do that, but I don't know how, make sure you check out some of these pages up here. These are some free online programs that you may want to use in your classroom. The very first one that I highly recommend is a screen recorder. And this is a free one that I've used for 6 or 7 years now. I love it. I have almost 200 videos created, and it's still free. But just, a screen recorder, which is a lot like what we're doing now, where this is being recorded, what I'm saying, and you hear me speaking and I'm clicking and I'm doing things. And so it's a great way to teach kids different things. But make sure you look through all of this. And on Thursday, I'm doing a Canvas advanced class. And after that, this page will be ready. Big one. Again, just like in the classroom, you don't want to overwhelm them with information, but in the online environment, because it's new, you definitely don't want to overwhelm them with information. So make sure you chunk things into small pieces. If you want to record yourself speaking over a PowerPoint and put that online, don't make an hour-long recording. I try not to go over 10 minutes in my recordings. And that's my recordings that I send to my teachers, to, school administrators around the area, and especially to my students. But once they get too long, and this right here is a nice little graphic that's showing that, but it says student engagement with online videos, and you can see between the 9-minute mark, it just plummets. And that's for all of us, right? I mean, that's me. And I'm supposed to be the adult here. So I can't expect my students to watch me talk over a PowerPoint for an hour within a video. So just chunk it up, split the PowerPoints into smaller videos. And in between each video, they can answer some questions. They can do a little assignment. They could maybe create their own video to talk about what they're learning. Again, talk to those K-3 teachers, and ask them about, how do you explain things that these kids are clueless about? Like, how do you explain something that a kid has no idea what it is? Feedback is crucial. There's nothing new. We all know that. Teach the technology as a learning tool, not just a gaming tool. You may have some fun games within your online class, but the vast majority of it really needs to just focus on them learning, and then also them taking that technology and creating something of their own with it. And I already said, even though they're in your classroom, have them do discussions online, have them submit their work online, because that's all just valuable skills that they're going to need in the future. And then while you're doing all this, you're going to be modeling how to use technology. Something's going to happen one day, and you're going to have to troubleshoot the problem. And the kids are going to watch how you do that, and they're going to learn from you. So that's a great thing, right? That's what we all want with our students. So just having that in the classroom is, again, it's just such a great learning tool for these students. So this is just a quick rundown. So later on, if you're looking through this and you're thinking about, okay, I want to create a module in my class. Well, here's some things that, to kind of keep in mind. One, why are we doing this? Videos. Don't be afraid of videos, but also have some videos with you in it, not just with outside resources. Do the online conferencing, especially if we have to do remote learning again this fall. Do it. Don't be afraid of it. One thing I will stress is, try not, if there's any possible way that you can split the students up into smaller groups, and instead of doing 1 hour-long video conference a week with I don't know how many, with me as a high school teacher, I couldn't have done it, because I would have had 90 some students in there, and that would have been ridiculous, right? And I'm sure the way some of your all's scheduling is set up, it would be the same way, but I wouldn't even do it with 30 students, because just like when you're in a classroom speaking to 30 kids at one time, you're never going to be able to just really talk to all of them or engage all of them. So if you can divide that up into just 10 to 15 kids at a time, and instead of an hour-long meeting time, if you had 30 minutes of a meeting, then it would really it would make for a better environment for you to teach in, or to just talk in. Maybe you're just doing these for the social aspect, which is great. But it would just make for a better environment for all of you if you can split those kids up into smaller groups. Don't be afraid of online textbooks that are out there. all over the place. And my students they're given links, especially in my U.S. history class, to online textbooks. These kids still need to learn how to read from a textbook, right? And be able to understand that information and possibly, read it, take notes on it, things like that. And so don't think that everything has to be some crazy out of the box thinking, but it could just be a link to an online textbook that these students will use that will help give them some really good information. Projects are really the best assessment in the online environment. Every one of my online classes has multiple choice quizzes or tests, because every one of our high school students have to take like an EOC. In my U.S. history class, it's full of projects, but they take various online assessments that are just multiple choice questions. Are those multiple choice tests giving me any information about what they know? No, because all they have to do is, no matter what kind of lockdown I have on their screen here, if they don't know the answer to something and it's multiple choice A, B, C, D, they just pull out their phone and get on Google and they say, what, blah, blah, blah. Oh, there's the answer, So it's not really telling me, except for the essay parts, but that multiple choice part is not really telling me if they know the information or not. But all it's doing is, again, teaching them how to take a test in the online environment, which, again, we all know they're going to do. They're going to have to do. So they're there. But the way in which I really know what students are learning, what they understand, is through projects. There's my online discussions again. Less is more. You're not going to take, let's say that your principal just asked you to create a full, like an online 6th grade math class from start to finish. Everything that you do in the classroom, you are not going to put into the online environment. You don't have to, and I don't want you to feel like you have to do that. It says here, less is more, and that comes to everything in the online environment. But you think of when we're in the classroom and we do bell ringers, and we do all of these little, I need the kids to do this while I'm taking roll. The kids don't unless you love whatever that bell ringer is, the kids don't have to do that anymore. You can really kind of, and should definitely take this wide array of things in which you were having to fill an hour and a half with kids each day, take that wider range of things and just condense it down into what do we need to do to learn this information, and what can I have my students do with out of the box projects and things like that will help them to learn this information. And that goes with that last one there. It says, let them be creative, and really the online environment is a great place to show them how to be creative. And all kids can do this. There is, what am I looking? Let me try to find something really fast. So this right here is Screencast-O-Matic. This is that screen recording program that I talk to people about. But I'm not using it in this video. My youngest son is using this in the video. He created a Google slide deck, and then I pulled up Screencast, and he started recording himself. And this was his assessment for this unit for his teacher. And I love it because it's different. It wasn't just a PowerPoint, which is, it's hilarious that we say that, just a PowerPoint. But by the 3rd grade, he had already made a few of those. But it was take that slide deck or that PowerPoint and now teach us all what you've learned about Mars. And he was able to do this easily. I pulled it up and I said, press here to start recording, press here to pause it, press this little trash can if you mess up and you want to start over. And I left the room, and he was able to do it on his own. So, and again, this is a 3rd grader. So when you're thinking about projects, there's so many different things that you can add to it to just make it a little more fun for the kids. I don't know about you guys, but every kid I know wants to be a YouTuber. Let me see if it'll let me fast forward.
All around it.
My
An hour later,
daughter,
and
so my daughter did, she created a book, bookcreator.com, another free resource. She created a book and embedded videos about foxes into this book. So, again, she got to play, she got to be her little YouTube, she got to teach her school, or her classmates more about foxes, and it was very easy for her, and it was free. And so again, that's this is all on that free programs site. If you check that out and you want some more ideas, here's, making videos like these Powtoons, making cartoons, having your students make cartoons, just a lot of different ideas. But just, since they've already got the computer in front of them and they already have the internet there, we know they have the internet, then you can introduce them to all of these free resources that they can use to take information and just, turn it into their own and end up becoming the teacher themselves. This is just some assessment tips, and you should, you could read through this slowly on your own later. But again, I say multiple choice quizzes, they're not going to tell you anything. Especially if the kids are working fully from home. Now, if they're taking that quiz or that test in the classroom while you're sitting there with them, then yeah, that's going to tell you a lot. But if they're working from home, it's not really going to tell you anything except how well they can use Google, right? But the key to good projects is good prompts. You have to have some really, and this is something that you will live and you will learn from. But like if you're wanting to deter plagiarism in an essay prompt, don't just ask them, what was one thing that I was thinking of the other day? Oh, my students in my personal finance class were doing just a short little assignment on money and what is money, and talking about the gold standard and how we're not on the gold standard anymore. And I will show you, these are just very short answer 4 questions, but I've added to each piece something that helped to deter for plagiarism. So for question number 1, I could have just asked, why is money better than barter system? And the kids could have just, Googled that and answered it. But then I also said, give me an example, but not the one used in the video. And then there's a later assignment where I say, give me an example from your life, to help, again, just to help bring this in and to make them think about it a little bit more than just kind of trying to reword a definition that they got from Google. The second one here, I talk about the 3 functions of money and to define them, but then to also give examples. This one, talking about cigarettes, that was from the video, and the kids always thought that was crazy. But the 4th one is, what's the gold standard? I could have, again, stopped there, but to really understand what they're thinking, I asked them this second question, which is, are you worried that we're no longer on it? And so that right there tells me so much more as to whether they understand what the gold standard is or not than this does. Because again, this was defined in the PowerPoint slides they had to go through, and this can be Googled and found on 1,000 different websites. But this right here, are you worried about it? They really have to think about that, and they have to try to figure out, and they always have to answer with the why. Why do you feel it? So they can't just say, no, I'm not worried about it, because they would not get full credit for that, and I would make them redo it and add more. Discussions are assessments. So those online discussions that I keep saying, you should try even when you're in the classroom, those can even be used as assessments. You can set them so that students can't see anybody else's response until they submit. And so they can answer some questions and put their thoughts on things. But then once they hit submit, they can go in and they can learn from their fellow classmates. So I tell you again, sorry, that just freaked out on me. I tell you again that, don't be afraid of, all the kids want to be a YouTuber. So don't be afraid to bring in some videos and things like that to help them. Uh, Poetry, every class I teach online, from personal finance, contemporary issues, US history, yes, my students write a poem in it. And I know it sounds kind of crazy, and if, maybe some math teachers out there are like, what, I could never use that, but you could, and it'd be fun, and it'd be kind of, you could even make it kind of silly, and the kids would love it, and it could be a way for them to kind of show you that they understand maybe some new terms that you're teaching or something like that. But we've only got about 5 minutes, so I'm going to end here. This is a quote from Scott Lamy. He teaches for Bristol City. He's an amazing math teacher. He taught math online for them for years. He teaches math online for me, and now he's a social emotional interventionist at one of the elementary schools. But I love his thinking with online and math. He sent me a video one time of students' work that was a lot like where I showed you how my son made the Mars presentation and then videoed himself talking about Mars and teaching about Mars. Well, he had his math students do that, and they had a seven questions they had to answer in the math class. But instead of just answering those questions and submitting that, they then had to record themselves explaining how they got their answers. So they used that free screencast program, and they recorded themselves saying, I got this answer for number 2, and this is how I did it. I went here and I did this, and blah, blah, blah. And so he has such a creative mind, and especially in things, thinking kind of outside the box and how to get kids a little more engaged in all of the work that we're doing that they're doing for us. You can go through these later on your own. I highly recommend it. But Brooke, if you want to go ahead and talk to them about this, and if there's any questions, I'd love to answer any questions.
Okay. Thanks so much, Gina. I love all of the resources that you shared with us. I'm definitely going to dig into those and use some of those myself. Love the free resources too. That's awesome. The survey takes about 1 minute. It just allows us to reflect on your thoughts about the session. We're always looking for ways to improve. And it's especially important to complete if you would like a certificate of attendance for this session. I think the link will be open for about 30 minutes. And I believe John, who is amazing, yes, he has posted that. So thank you so much, John. The link is there for you in the chat. If you have any problems with that, just let us know. Does anyone have any last minute questions for Gina about resources or any other ideas for online learning?
Oh, I just saw Catherine. Love her. Well, just guys, make sure you check out that website I showed you, because I think it's just going to be a great resource when you come back around to this, and you're just trying to figure some things out, especially this fall, and even in the classroom or with remote learning or blended learning. And also, please email me. This is part of my job with the foundation, is to work with teachers and to help teachers. And I've already had, from some of my previous sessions, I've had people email me with questions, and it's been amazing because it's made me think of, oh, that's a great question. I'm going to make a 5-minute video that shows how to do this, how to copy one Canvas course to another place, and things like that. So please don't be afraid to email me with any questions, because I would love to help. And that's my thing. That's what I love to do. So please just email anytime.
Right. Well, thanks